people that listen, because with the podcast is so fascinating because you're inside people's heads all the time. You know, like for me, I'm a podcast nerd. Like I listen to all the podcasts, and I listen to, you know, everything from Joe Rogan to Bert Kreischer to, you know, Hyena History to, I've been listening a lot to Eric Weinstein's The Portal, you know, just Theo Von, Chris D'Elia, a lot of comedians, but also a lot of intellectuals, especially the Eric Weinstein. That's a very, very, very good podcast. It's hard to keep up, but it's something that I think is very important to listen to. And in addition to that, I listen to a lot of lectures, whether it be Dr. Jordan Peterson or whether it be Robert Sapolsky or whether it be like certain mathematic teachers and professors. And what's so interesting about the podcasting, which I think is the reason why they're going to continue to grow, and I think there's an estimation about 900,000 people, or there's about 900,000 podcasts. And that's a low, you know, that's a high number, but it's still only, I guess it's pretty high. It's about 1 out of every 320 people. But it's interesting because I think the people who do listen, it's a very secular, I don't think it's as like, you know, when TVs were really common, everybody was listening to TV. You know, everybody was watching TV, from New York City to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Idaho, to Portland, to, you know, San Diego, San Francisco, all the way out to the UK, to Asia. Everybody was watching TV. So there was billions of listeners. And I think podcasts are still at the point where they're growing, and everybody, I think not everybody, once again, that's my own bias is talking. I don't think everyone listens to them, which I think is a beautiful opportunity, because I think everybody will be listening to them almost forcefully. I think people are going to be forced to listen to them, because I think TV is literally only staying around for a few reasons. And I think it's because the older generation does not adjust well. You know, I think whenever you're old, I mean, nobody enjoys change, but I think especially the older generation, they have like TV shows that they listen to, they have time slots that they listen to, they have, you know, TV networks that they listen to, news channels that they listen to. And I think TV's basically only surviving because of that reason, because there's older people, and I think younger people at times, you know, do tune in, but I don't think it's as common as it used to be. I know it's not as common. And there's so many restrictions on what you can and can't show, or can and can't post, say, show, that people don't like the silence, that they don't like being told what they can and can't hear. And with podcasts, you can say whatever you want, whenever you want, how many times you want. That was really loud. I apologize about that. And I think it's, Jesus Christ, it's so loud. It's Taylor. She's texting me. But yeah, I think there's so much, Jesus Christ, Taylor, stop. Jesus. Sorry. There's so much, damn, I lost my train of thought. There's so many restrictions on what you can and can't hear. And I think you have to go out of your way to watch television. But with podcasts, you take that with you all the time, right? Like you just put it in your ears, and you're out there going to the grocery store, you're out there at the gym, you know, you're at, you know, walking between classes of school. You're taking the podcast with you. So I think there's a personal relationship that you develop with like these listeners that you hear, you know, and I think the rise of the podcast is just going to keep growing, and it's so nice to just listen to people talk. It really is just kind of jump into their brain for a little bit, and you know, you take certain things out from what they say, you know, you don't listen to some things that they say. You create conversation with people outside of the podcast, like, oh, I was listening today about the creation of stars and you know, low entropy versus high entropy. You can take that knowledge and you can converse with people. It builds relationships outside of the podcast, and you can communicate with people. Oh, have you heard of this specific podcast? And then you guys can start conversating about that. And then they start listening to it, and now you have more common similarities. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think in addition to that, I think with the Netflix and all these like Hulu's and all these like streaming services, you can listen, you can watch whatever you want, whenever you want, for as long as you want. And there's no restrictions, once again, on what you can and can't say. There's no like this political correctness, there's no like agendas, you know, a lot of the times, especially for Netflix. I mean, they put up Dave Chappelle's Delirious podcast, which opens up with like using the F word, you know. So it's very interesting, the world that we live in, with just the freedom to say whatever you want. And I think people are slowly falling in love with podcasts. And once again, it's only 900,000 podcasts out there, so it's not that many. So 1 out of every 320 people have one. And I think it's going to get to a point where, you know, 10 out of 320 people have them. I think it's going to be a lot higher. I think there's going to be a huge market out there too for, you know, the same way that there's like Hollywood and Netflix. I think there's going to be like a huge platform, which there already is, but there's going to be like businesses where the whole business setup is like, you have McDonald's for food. You're going to have like a McDonald's version of podcast, like studios scattered in each and every city. And then there's going to be time slots on when you can come in and record a podcast and post it that way. I think that's coming, and I think it's going to be here within the next 10 years, especially with all the elections coming up with politics. People want an unbiased opinion, an unfiltered opinion, and honestly, an opinion that may not be thought out completely, because that's what you want to hear. You want to hear people who aren't working off an agenda. They can say whatever they want whenever they want. They don't have their hands tied behind their back. And I think that's, you know, the world that we're slowly getting into, which excites the hell out of me. Like, I've been doing a podcast since July. Before this one, I had one, I think 2017 I was doing one, and it was just on Anchor, which is like a great platform to start off on. You know, it's just audio only. But I really want to get into YouTube. That was kind of like my goal. I really wanted to get into the YouTube side of things. But, you know, there's so many options out there, and it's so easy. All you need is a table, a mic, and a camera. Honestly, you don't even need a camera if you don't want to do a video, if you don't want to do YouTube. Like, all you need is a mic, a sound mixer, a table, and the ability to talk. And you don't even need to talk for a long time. Like, you can do a 20-minute podcast. Like, my podcasts aren't that long unless I do it with somebody else. They're only about 40 to 45 minutes long, sometimes an hour. And you just got to talk and just keep on posting, just keep the content going, and be transparent with your viewers. And you can't make it feel like a job. Like, when I first started it, I was doing 3 to 4 episodes a week, and it was exhausting. I thought I could do it. I thought all I had to do was talk, and, you know, that's true. But once it becomes a job, I think it becomes less fun. And I've ran into that a few times where it does feel like it's becoming a job. And I've learned that you can't do that. You can't allow it to become a job. You got to do it just for the fun of it. Even though, like, now I'm getting paid, it's still not a lot, you know, just off of ad revenue. It's not a lot of money. So, you know, I don't know. I think